it's me, Nate, aka Devil Dog, and I'm back with my top 10 worst and top 10 best games of 2022. This is gonna be a really long video, so get yourself some snacks, get yourself a soda, some beer, sit down and relax, because this is a long video. Now, before I get started, I have to let you know the games that made it to my top 10 best and worst list are based off of games that I myself either liked or hated. So there might be some on here you totally disagree with me. There might be some that you think are missing. Where's this? Where's that? Why did that make it on there? Why? Because it's my list, my choices of my personal top 10 favorite and least liked games of 2022. But here they are. Let's start off with the worst list with number 10.
Number 10. Gungrave Gore. Gungrave Gore. My bad. Now, on paper, you would think a game like this would work out great, and it has in previous installments. This is a sequel to a pretty long-running series of games, but to me it just plays and looks like something that would be on PlayStation 2. Keep in mind, I played it on PlayStation 5 and bumped it up to where it was 60 frames a second, and while it was fun and frantic, it just didn't really have anything special that stood out. It just came off like an odd lot brand version of Devil May Cry meets Bayonetta with this anime filter over top. And I know they've had other games in the series, which I've never played, but this one, after playing it for 5 minutes, you basically get the whole flavor of the entire game. Does it look neat? Sometimes, yeah. But it's the same humdrum characters, the same boring ass enemies, and the same lame ass corridors and buildings you go through, not even counting the stupid bullet sponge bosses you fight. And in the end, this was just so bad, I just can't say it was worth even playing. Number 9. Evil Dead the Game. I had such high hopes for this game when I first seen it was in development. Who would have thought that a 4 versus 1 game wouldn't work out that well, especially set in the Evil Dead universe? And yes, you get to play as normal returning characters as Ash, and even a lot of the people from the TV series, which was really cool. And the fact of being able to play as the Deadites from the movies and stuff like that was nice, but the overall game's design is just so flawed and boring. Each match lasts way too long, and if you're playing as one of the Deadites, all you have to do is just go around, ignore the people, let them get their pages, and just gather up enough energy to where when they're trying to do the final battle, you just throw everything that you got at them and you're guaranteed to beat them every time. There is just no strategy to this game, and it was just so boring, and I was so disappointed by it that it had so much promise. That's why it ends up on my list, but yeah, pretty low on the list though. Number 8. The Devil in Me. Now, while I did a review of this and I said I actually liked the game, and I still say I do, it's low on my list of games that I thought was the worst, because who would have thought that going through H.H. Holmes' murder castle would be a boring thing? But the way they did this game, Supermassive really dropped the ball. I feel it comes off as nothing more than a walking simulator down hallways than any sort of really true jump scares. And even though it got a lot of high ratings from different outlets, I would have to disagree. Visually, it's stunning. Once again, most games that Supermassive make are great, especially with the character designs. But the overall plot, the pacing, the lack of scares, and honestly, the really boring ways the enemies die. One of the main things with Supermassive games is the fact you can kill the characters off and they don't come back. But in this, I just didn't really care about any of the characters, and I didn't really like even the way they die. It was just ended up being very disappointing. Number 7. Doctor Who: The Edge of Reality. Now I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this one, because a lot of people enjoyed this game, but to me, it was just a slog to play through. Don't get me wrong, once things picked up and the stuff started happening where you got to play as the two doctors and use their sonic screwdrivers with the solving puzzles and going around, it did get better. But to me, I just couldn't get past the fact that I don't really want to play a game where I'm doing my laundry, okay? I don't want to literally be washing laundry before something happens. And in this, you can tell this was obviously a VR game, a PlayStation VR game, but I played it on PS5. And when you're playing something like this, it was just a slog to play through. It was not interesting at all, and while some of the levels and character designs were really creative and neat, it just did not hold my interest. And as a Doctor Who fan, I'm not a diehard at all, but I would have to say I was just so bored with this game. I had to force myself to play through and beat it, and that is just not a good sign, and that's why it ended up pretty high on my list of top 10 games I didn't like. Number 6. Dying Light 2, Stay Human. Now, while the first Dying Light had a lot of aspects to it that were great, you would think when you make a sequel that you would expand upon that. Bigger game world, more things. Well, all that's true in this, but what they do is they hamper it by making your character a wuss. You have to go and level up and do certain things in order to unlock abilities to actually progress farther through the game. And you think, well, Nathan, that's how most games are designed. Well, that's great if there was a game that had good plot development. This has a boring ass story, characters that you interact with that you absolutely hate, none of them you like, decisions that don't really make a damn difference at all, and by far it has to have one of the worst damn endings I've ever seen in a game. Text-based? Really, are you serious? We've come this far with gamings, and you can't even have anything other than a text-based ending? Yes, the fighting mechanics were pretty good, and the parkour was too, and the level design I think was the best part. But you combine it all together in a sequel of a long-awaited game, and every single aspect of this game just ended up being a complete disappointment, and that's why it's this high on my list of top 10 games I didn't like. Number 5. Gotham Knights. Man, what to say about Gotham Knights. This had so much going for it with the giant open world game design, and while it's created by, I think, Warner Brothers Montreal, it's not Rocksteady, and it shows, because the fighting is a lot looser, more clunky, more slow paced. It reminds me of almost like a reskinned Assassin's Creed game in the way this game was built, with you having to go around and level your character up and get different gear pieces to be able to be high enough level to beat an enemy. I understand where they were going with this, but you can tell the development team, man, they had to rush to get this out because, Warner Brothers obviously wanted it to be a different kind of game. They obviously wanted it to be a microtransaction fest online service game. And unfortunately, it's not, but how can you tell me this was not able to be made on last-gen systems, and when you finally do make it for current-gen systems, it can't even support more than 2 players at once? I mean, yes, they're adding content that is 4-player, but it doesn't allow you to play the whole game with it. And my God, the boss battles, all 3 of them. This game, it sucked. Number 4. The Last of Us Part 1. Now I know you're wondering, why in hell would you possibly put this on the worst games this so high? Well, it's because we've already played this game how many times, people? This is what I have a problem with game development. Instead of making a new version of it like they're doing with Resident Evil 4 Remake, where they add new stuff to it, this is a scene-by-scene exact duplicate of the original. Does it look great? Well, of course, it's PS5. Does it run great? Yes, but you have to have more than the same repetitive crap and high-end graphics to actually support someone paying $70 for another version of the same game we've already played multiple times before. It's $70. All it comes is with the Left Behind DLC and no multiplayer. That's not right. Now, if this would have been a $29 game, I would have no problem with it, and it would not be on this list. Because if you're one of the 2 people under a rock who hasn't played The Last of Us, honestly, it is a worthy game, but not worthy of $70 and a remake like this. Come on, Naughty Dog. Where the hell is Jack and Daxter? Number 3. Babylon's Fall. Yeah, Babylon's Fall. Once again, the same company I think that made Bayonetta worked with Square Enix on this title, and you would think it would be a match made in heaven with those two companies working together, but instead you just end up with this boring slog. And don't let these screenshots fool you. These screenshots make it look a lot better than the game really is. It runs like crap, it plays like crap, the story's crap, and it's such a crappy game. It has lost so many players on it since it's a online game that Square Enix has already shut it down. That's right. Only a couple months after it's been out, and Square Enix is already washing their hands at this. That says something considering how many games that should be shut down that are still going. The premise had so much potential, and the game development company that made it has so much top quality talent, and how the hell they would botch it and turn it into this steaming pile of crap, I do not know. This hands far is just a terrible game through and through, and that's why it's so far up on my list. Number 2. Saints Row. Now I know a lot of people actually might disagree with me on this and say, hey, after the patches, this is a decent game. No, it's not. In my book, you look at these characters. These characters that they're pushing as the new Saints Row are the pushover pansies that would give them iced coffee drinks as Gat would go and beat the crap out of them and kill them. None of these main characters are likable. The plot is nonsensical. The only aspect that's somewhat saving is some of the gameplay, but it's so bare thread thin and so boring, and just you do the same 4 things over and over again. If you had a good plot, I could probably get behind this game. But the fact of the matter is, the characters, I hate them. I hate their personalities. I hate everything they say and do. I don't like the premise of these characters. I don't like the new gangs. The only thing I kind of sort of like was the new game world, and they botched that too. In the end, Saints Row is not the right way to do a reboot. This was terrible, and the development company knew this sucked, and they still did not listen to their fans that were telling them from day one this was going to be a mistake. Number 1. Madden 23. That's right. I told you guys, just because it's a good game, don't mean that it is a good game. While fundamentally on paper, the Madden series functions pretty well. Even though they keep reselling and regurgitating the same game to you fools each and every year with a new update of the stat roster, but at a full price of $70, I cannot sit here and say that this is a good game. This is a terrible game, and while gameplay is great and everything, but the fact that they rode off the coattails of the passing of the great John Madden to make multiple versions of this game to sell it just makes me sick to my stomach. You can repackage the same old crap from PlayStation and just change the name to a new thing and sell it back to the people for a full price game of $70. This is an abomination. I do not like this franchise. I do not like what they do with it every year. And the main thing is I really dislike is the fact of the fan base that keeps paying full price for this crap. Now, if this once again was $19 to $20, maybe even $30 for just a stat roster update and stuff, I would not have a problem with it. But the fact that this is a full price game and they're just selling the same crap back to you every year, and actually with less features, made it my number 1 most hated game of 2022.
Wow, that was a heck of a list, wasn't it? I bet you weren't expecting some of those to pop up there. You're probably wondering where a couple other ones are. Maybe they might end up being on my top 10 disappointment list. But before we get to the top 10 best games of 2022, first we have to pause for a short commercial break.
If you like to taste the balls in your mouth, then go down to the store and grab some balls off the shelf. You know you love that nice feel of balls, especially the blue ones in your hands. That's right, nothing beats you getting a nice delicious thing of balls in your mouth. You look like you love balls. You love balls, that's right, grab those balls off the shelf. You do like them balls, don't you? Well, you go ahead and take them balls and you get on out of there. You grab them balls, you slam your balls in your car, you watch as your balls are rattling around in that car. You like it when those balls are rattling, don't you? That's right, you love it when your balls rattle, don't you? Grab your balls out of your cart, slam your balls down, and drag your balls across the conveyor belt as the lady grabs your balls and scans each ball, even the blue balls, even the green balls, even your clear balls, because you like it when your balls get fondled. And finally, for safety, make sure to put your balls in a ball sack. That's right, protect your balls in a ball sack, and you always want to finish off your balls with a nice bag of D's nuts.
Steve, really? Again with that one? What? How much they pay? What? Really? Okay, I'm okay with it. Oh, we are back to the top 10 list, and here we are. We already seen the top 10 worst ones, one of the top 10 favorites in my personal opinion. Well, here they are now.
Number 10. The Quarry. While The Devil in Me was okay, this is a correct way to make a supermassive game. From the massive voice talent of all the characters that portray their different nuances in this adventure, as you're playing basically through a slasher flick, which actually works and fits best in the supermassive style game. With their storytelling abilities, the branching paths, the game world as a whole is actually way more appealing, a lot more versatility, more variety. Yes, some of the characters are douchebags, but they're kids, they're teenagers, they're supposed to be. They're like camp counselors at the Hackett's Quarry camp, and it works in so many ways, so much more than The Devil in Me did, to where I wanted to go back and play through this to see the different variations, the different ways I could kill the people. Also, the lore in this, the story comes off pretty decent too. At first you think it has to do with like vampires or something else, and it has a pretty decent twist to it. Honestly, hands down, I really enjoyed this game, and that's why it's actually ended up on my top 10 best games of 2022. I really want to see another one like this. Number 9. Cuphead, the delicious last course. Honestly, this is a fantastic DLC. Honestly, it is only a DLC and not a standalone game, which I can't hope, maybe in the future they do come out with a sequel. But this is the best way to add more content, more bosses, a bigger game world, an extra character you can play as, which much harder, difficult bosses. My God, I was ripping my hair out on these bosses, but it just is so visually appealing, and so much like those old classic Fleischer cartoons, it made me want to keep playing it, and even though it was so difficult, I enjoyed every minute of it. And the ability to go back and play and go against the old bosses of the original game with the new character added a little bit more variety, a little bit more flavor. Hands down, this is a visually stunning title that the animation is superb, and while I can't recommend it for a lot of people out there due to its insane difficulty, don't even try playing this in 2-player mode, people. Honestly, hands down, I absolutely love Cuphead, and I love this delicious final course, and I can't wait to see what they do with a sequel in the future. Number 8. Cult of the Lamb. This game kind of came out of nowhere, and I don't think anybody expected it to be this good. The charming art style has this weird sort of vibes back to some other games, and the gameplay itself seems very simplistic, but it's so deep and fun. As you pretty much trying to get your own cult and getting more powerful, you're sacrificing them and stuff like that. Honestly, I never thought in a million years I would like this game, but it's visually very striking. It's a beautiful game. It's fun to play. It's rather deep, so it's got a lot of different things you have to deal with in it, and you would never think in a million years a game like this would work, but it just does. Everything about it, the playability, the art style, the control, everything, including the battles, it's actually a really fun game, and if you've never heard of this, I highly recommend you play it. It's not that expensive to pick up and play, and it's really, really good. Just remember one thing though, you're going to have to be cleaning a lot of poop. But it's okay. You're going to be sacrificing them anyway. But this is a good game. Number 7. Evil West. Honestly, this game is so much better than I expected it to be. It once again plays similar to a game like a Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, where you play as a Wild West cowboy fighting all kinds of demons and monsters with all kinds of futuristic weapons. It's almost like playing a modern version of R.I.P.D., the movie R.I.P.D., or something like that. And the mechanics of being able to have the melee combat that actually breaks up and has more fluidity to it, more moves as you go that you can upgrade, comboing them with your weapons in these settings that are just super gothic and cool. On top of it, I like the characters. I like the art design, I like the characters, I like the gameplay, I like the level structure. Honestly, some of the levels can be a bit muddy. I think especially on the higher end PS5 version, the resolution I don't think they got quite right. But honestly, I love this game. I really do. I played through it and I was smiling the whole damn way through. And that's why it's so high on my top 10 games of 2022. Number 6. TMNT Shredder's Revenge. This is a love letter to all the fans of the classic arcade side-scrolling beat-em-ups of yore. Everything about this is fantastic, from the 4-player co-op, even being able to unlock some hidden characters once you beat it, Casey Jones. All the, just the love and attention due to the beautiful pixel art, the animations, all the different enemies that you play. If you were a huge fan of the original Ninja Turtles cartoon show back in the day, and you love the side-scrolling beat-em-ups that I think were from Konami, this is just fantastic. It's got a nice little overworld map that you go through to play the levels, but the main thing is just everything about it. The different turtles each have their different moves, their different taunts. Honestly, I love this game. The music is phenomenal. The voice acting is phenomenal. The gameplay just like strikes a chord within me, and I just can't help but feel like a little kid again playing this. And it can be quite difficult on the higher levels, but I just found myself going back to this and enjoying every single bit of this game. This is a correct way to make a classic beat 'em up. Number 5. Stray. Honestly, I was intrigued by this game when I first seen it. I mean, after all, you get to play as a cute little fuzzy kitty cat who falls and leaves his little buddies behind, and you go on a quest to try to reunite with your family. Along the way, you go through a post-apocalyptic sort of world, this dystopian Blade Runner style thing where humans are dead and there's nothing but robots. And most of the time it's just exploration and moving around and talking with people, but there are some aspects where you have to run from enemies. But for the most part, this is more about the exploration part. Now, I hope in the future, if they do make a sequel to this, they give you the ability to actually control the kitty to be able to jump the platforms, because in this one it would just be a button press to jump from areas. But the plot was intriguing, the overall art style, and the game world you play as, and plus you got to play as a cute kitty. I want to see more games like this. This was very creative, very inventive, and while it wasn't an action-packed spectacle, it was still something that I could play that I enjoyed, that was relaxing, other than a couple parts, and I'm intrigued to know what they could possibly do with a sequel in the future. Number 4. A Plague Tale Requiem. This story continues on with Amicia and Hugo as you go to France, I believe, but naturally things happen where the plague follows you. This is a fantastic sequel to an already really messed up game, and keep in mind, if you're not a fan of a game that has a lot of stealth aspects, you probably won't like this, but I absolutely adore this game. The fact of how many more rats they've added, the overall game world that they have, the visual fidelity, the plot, the story, and the fact that it mixes it up with playing as different characters throughout this adventure. Honestly, it was an intriguing story where I actually felt bad for these people, because no matter what they seem to do, they seem to be cursed wherever they go. And let's be honest, the main thing with this is the rat mechanic. And the rat mechanic and them adding, I think, from 30,000 rats to 300,000 rats makes it to where you have just waves, a sea of rats. And you combine that with the strategic aspects of the stealth combat, which has been fleshed out more with new moves and new abilities from Amicia to be able to tackle her threats through it. Overall, this was a well-balanced and a fantastic sequel. Number 3. Horizon Dawn Forbidden West. Honestly, I love the first Horizon, and this one just adds to it with the story. You go basically as Aloy right into the new area as you're progressing to catch up with the evil bad guy, fighting new enemies along the way in a great new open epic world. It adds more weapons, more abilities, more, creative aspects to it. The underwater areas are just phenomenal. The graphic fidelity is just beautiful. The world design as a whole is great. It has a ton of content to it, so you're definitely getting your money's worth. And they do actually finish off most of the story and set it up for the third finale that's supposed to be quite epic. Honestly, if you haven't played the first Horizon, I think you kind of do need to play it in order to understand this one, but you can still play it. It is a fantastic open world game. Honestly, I am happy to say this sequel improved upon a lot of aspects of the first one, even in allowing a lot more traversal of rock faces. It's not quite up there with, like, let's say, Legend of Zelda, the Breath of the Wild, but the epic boss battles and everything else, this was a fantastic sequel to an already great game. Number 2. Elden Ring. I find myself actually saying I don't like the Soulsborne style series of games, but this one struck a chord with me. The art style, the story, the plot, just the darkness of it, the open world aspect with the central hub and the areas that spread out in the game world, and the fact that it doesn't hold your hand. Now, games from this company are well known to always kick you in the teeth, and they kick you hard, and when you're down they kick you even harder. And this one, while it was like that and I'd rip my hair out screaming, there was just something about it that just kept drawing me back to it. Just everything about it, the gameplay, the boss battles, the areas, the exploration, everything is top tier in this. And there is a reason why it won Game of the Year. It deserves Game of the Year. Even though it's not my personal favorite, I totally get it. I really do. And unlike the other Soulsborne games in the series, this one I absolutely adore, no matter how bad it kicks me in my teeth. Honestly, if you haven't played this, it won Game of the Year for a reason. Just remember, this is brutal. It's a brutal, hard game, but definitely well worth the pain. Number 1. God of War Ragnarok. I'm sure most people seen this coming. The last God of War they did was fantastic, set in the universe, and this finishes off the story with Atreus and Kratos as they go through, ended up fighting all these other people on a rather epic story, this time allowing you to go through all 9 realms, unlike last time they had some sectioned off. Now, it's not a true open world game. It's quite linear with big branches that are set up, but I don't have a game that have a problem with a game that's built like that if it's done in a certain fashion that actually makes you want to keep playing through. With the visual fidelity, the mechanics, the additional new moveset that Kratos and Atreus gets, and also the different new weapons and abilities with his shield, being able to transform into different shields, and also having a spear. While I don't really think the spear was really that good in this, I still used it from time to time, but it improves upon everything the last one did in terms of boss battles, level design. The characters are so well fleshed out. The story, everything about this game is just phenomenal, and that's why it's my number 1 game of the year.
That's right, people. That's my list. My top 10 worst and my top 10 favorite games of 2022. I cannot wait to see in the comments below which ones you agree with me on, which ones you disagree, which ones you feel are missing that should have been there. Leave in the comments below. I want to answer each and every single one of your questions. I want to see what you think and how your top 10s match up to mine. But in the end, it's only my opinion. I want to thank each and every single one of you for coming back to Devil Dog Gaming. I have nothing but good stuff coming down the pipeline, bigger and better than ever before. Like I said, please give me a thumbs up, please subscribe to my channel, and remember, here at Devil Dog Gaming, we always end our videos by saying, have fun, play hard, and remember, people, the devil is in the details. Peace out until next time.